Welcome to the New England Holstein Association podcast. We are episode 14. The New England Holstein Association is a member association dedicated to encouraging the breeding and raising of registered Holsteins, and this podcast intends to provide resources towards those ends while increasing member connectedness. This episode is sponsored by the Springfield Showcase Sale, which is happening Monday, April 20th during the Northeast Albany Spring Shows in West Springfield, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Betsy Bullard of Brigeen Farms, Turner, Maine, and Area 1 Director for Holstein USA. Each podcast will feature one or more members discussing timely topics from breeder perspectives, marketing activities, on-farm technologies and management strategies, to youth highlights and numerous things in between. Guests do have homework for each episode, naming an iconic New England cow and a personal cow icon whose story intertwines with their Holstein experience. Our last episode featured some of our junior members, so it's an easy segue to today's guest, Keenan Thygesen of Farmstead Genetics, and one of the driving forces behind the Springfield Showcase Sale. Keenan is a recent junior member in that he is now, I don't know, are we close enough to graduation so we can say adult at this point? Keenan enjoyed a pretty illustrious junior career, being recognized as a Holstein USA Distinguished Junior Member. So Keenan, tell us a little bit about your junior Holstein activities and how they influence where you find yourself today.
Well, Betsy, first off, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come on here today and say hi. I guess as far as my junior Holstein adventure, if you want to say that, it started a little bit late for me. I didn't really start getting into the New England junior Holstein activities until I was 16, where I got really involved within the club and also took on roles like secretary, and then also just going to national conventions. And at National Holstein Convention, I competed in Jeopardy for 4 years after getting a little bit of a late start. I started right around when I was 16, just because my parents didn't necessarily want to drive me to Durham, New Hampshire for practice once a month. And so finally, once I got my license, that was kind of the go ahead to be, okay, like I can go do this and drive 2.5 hours for practice pretty much once a month. And that's kind of how all of us New England kids are. I guess your two kids, Betsy, they were driving a far ways too, just like me. So it's definitely a commitment if you want to be involved in New England Junior Holstein. But it was definitely well worth it. Just going to national conventions and then applying for the DJM process and then going through that at national convention was definitely an awesome experience. And I would encourage any youth member, if they're going to apply for DJM or YDJM, definitely do it if you're on the fence. It's an awesome opportunity and you get to meet so many people and make so many connections along the way.
So Keenan, tell me a little bit more about that process. For maybe there are some of our listeners who aren't quite as familiar with the process as you and I are. And what did the process look like? And what do you feel like the things that were really valuable about it?
Yeah, so the process is you basically have to come up with a binder of literally everything and anything that you've done in New England Junior Holstein, I guess for us, or whatever state you were in their Holstein Association for. And you're writing your Holstein story. You're keeping track of all of the Holstein animals that you've shown or have production records on or anything along those lines. And then you're also submitting a resume, which I think really helps with professional development, especially since being in college, seeing how much resumes actually do help and then applying for jobs. It's real world experience that I think it's good to get an early head start on, especially as a YDJM and then a DJM, because you're not only doing the resume, but you're getting the resume out to people that may be your future employers. And it's good practice, even if they aren't. So that's kind of what the process looked like. And then once you submit your book gets kind of graded in a way. And then you hear back if you are a DJM semifinalist. And after that, you attend National Holstein Convention, where you go over interviews during the week. And then you're also helping out with different contests like Jeopardy or Dairy Bowl or anything along those lines. And then also just meeting and greeting people and being kind of ambassadors at National Holstein Convention.
Encouraging to hear that it was helpful to you, especially around that professional development piece as you're nearing the finish line in your college career. I'm sure that's been top of mind for just a minute or two over the last year or two. So do you feel like those Junior Holstein activities and some of those youth activities you were involved in had some influence on your college years and where you find yourself headed after May 10th?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like the connections that you make through not only New England Junior Holstein, but at national conventions, that really, I guess, gives you a leg up on pretty much everybody else, just meeting people throughout the Holstein industry. I mean, I met you and your kids through through Holstein, so that's definitely been a highlight. Is just networking, networking, networking. I mean, everybody says it's not always about what you know; it's who you know too. And you surround yourself with the people that you enjoy, you'll have a great time. So it's definitely been a really positive experience being involved in New England Junior Holstein, as well as showing Holsteins around New England too, and getting involved in showmanship and then also open shows too. It's just been a great experience.
Well, that's always good to hear. Just a reminder for our listeners, we talked on our last episode with some real life junior members, current junior members. Anyone under 21 can be a Junior Holstein member. There's not a requirement to own a certain number of cows or even to own Holsteins. Activities include various age group specific dairy knowledge bowl, dairy jeopardy, public speaking, both prepared and extemporaneous for preparation of digital scrapbook and promotional banners for the club. So lots of different activities for different interests. As you brought up, those connections that are made and inside and out of those contests, the opportunity to interact with young people and the adults that go with them as kind of a package deal is a pretty unique sort of experience. So definitely good to hear that had some impact on your career thus far as well. So you mentioned showing.
Yeah, I guess I've grown up showing pretty much all my life. Ever since I can remember, I had a show altar in my hand. My parents helped me show from a very young age. I think I showed my first calf at the Tunbridge World's Fair when I was 4 or 5, and it started from there. I had a Holstein and I had a brown Swiss calf, and I love those things to death. And since I started that, that's been quite a journey. I guess now I'll be 23 this fall. I feel old a little bit, but growing up, I was involved in 4-H heavily. I was part of the Clever Clovers 4-H club based right out of Tunbridge, Vermont. My mom and my uncle and my dad were our 4-H leaders, and they kind of really pushed us all to keep good record books, but also do well in the show ring. I mean, there isn't a 4-H practice where I don't remember just practicing showmanship with a bunch of kids around the concrete pad on the backside of our barn. So that was definitely awesome. And we had a really good group that was my age. And so we all pushed each other to be better. And then once we got past the obviously county and state level, there was a group of us that would go to New England shows and then even national shows too. And so you just make those connections with the kids that were not only in your 4-H club, but then you're going and seeing them compete at the highest levels in the country. And it's really cool to see. Through showing, I learned to clip cows. My dad was definitely a big mentor through that. And then also met a bunch of really cool people like Pat Lundy, who were kind of stepping stones along the way that helped me get better at fitting cattle. And that's allowed me to gain a lot of experience and meet a lot of people through clipping at shows and sales, especially throughout my high school and early college career. Definitely starting to slow down a little bit now and not do as much clipping, but still enjoy it and enjoy making cows look the best for classification or getting them show ring ready.
You brought up the Tunbridge World's Fair. This is probably completely off topic, but it's a pretty unique event. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, the Tunbridge World's Fair is really one of a kind. I guess I've grown up going to that since I can remember. My grandfather, Alan Howe, was the president of the fair for a while. And I would say it's a very historic fair. We have what we call Antique Hill. So there's just a bunch of old antique tractors. You actually have people that are acting as those in the olden days that are dressed up in antique clothing. And they're actually like churning butter like they used to in the olden days and making ice cream and making log cabins, stuff like that. So that's really neat. It's a very family friendly fair. We don't have like demo derbies or anything. They do have an antique tractor pull. And then we also have sheepdog trials too. So it's really interesting to see how stuff was done kind of before automotive implementation was made. And then we also have a really, really cool dairy show. Every year we probably have right around 300 head, which is pretty good for a small town in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. And we have people come from pretty much all over the state. It's really known for its Ayrshire show. We have a really cool Ayrshire show there. And then we have 4 different days over the course of the fair where we are actually showing animals. So the Thursday of the fair will be the open show heifer show for all breeds. Friday is the cow show, Supreme and Grand Champions show as well. And then Saturday is pretty much all showmanship for the kids. And then Sunday, we actually have a separate youth show, which I think is kind of unique for a county fair, just because not a lot of people have enough numbers to do that. But our fair is definitely very kid heavy, and it's awesome for them to get experience just showing against each other as opposed to going against open show too.
That's pretty close to home for you as well, isn't it?
About 2 miles. Yep.
Excellent. That makes it for a pretty easy commute back and forth, which is not always the case with fairs. So that's a pretty cool, unique event that I would encourage anybody to check out if you happen to be in the area on those dates. So you talked a little bit about showing some of your clipping, and then you also mentioned that you slowed down a little bit on the clipping with impending graduation and all that good stuff, but you've taken up some other activities, haven't you? You've been doing some auctioneering. You want to tell us a little more about how that started?
Absolutely. So I guess I've always kind of had the bug for auctioneering growing up, going to sales. I remember probably like one of the first sales that I can remember. It was the cutting edge sale back in 2013, I believe. And that was when Ken Man and Peter Vale, they still had their partnership and it was going strong. And they had a big sale down near Copake, New York. And I just remember going there, and Wayne Sliker was in the box with Chris Hill. And I bought a heifer that day, and I was so nervous because my dad made me bid, because if I was going to own this heifer, then it was going to be my deal. So I just remember like hearing Chris for the first time, and I was like, wow, this is something that I think would be really cool to do. And I have no idea how he talks that fast. But yeah, it's something that's always been in the back of my head, like, oh, that'd be really cool to do. And then I actually went to National Jersey Youth Academy in 2021. After that experience, I actually got a scholarship through the National Jersey Youth Academy to go to auctioneering school. So they actually paid my way in full to go to the Western College of Auctioneering in 2023. And then from there, things kind of took off. After I went to the Western College of Auctioneering, I actually competed in the Iowa Auctioneers Rookie Bid Calling Contest that next spring, January or February. So that next winter, following that, and won the Rookie Bid Calling Contest, which was really cool because I'd been practicing forever. And I was like, wow, I really don't want to embarrass myself, but I also want to have the experience too. So that was really cool. And that was a really good stepping stone for me. I guess that was sophomore year of college. After that, I actually got hooked up with an auctioneering company here in the Twin Cities where I go to school. And they do a lot of benefit auctions for Catholic schools surrounding the Twin Cities. We do a couple livestock auctions too and help out at the state fair as well. So I got hooked up with O'Sullivan Auctioneers, and now I'm a ringman for them pretty much all throughout the spring. We're doing auctions all around the Twin Cities pretty much every weekend. So that's been a really good experience working with Frank Sullivan, and then all of the crew, and meeting other auctioneers from around the state too has been really neat to experience, especially like, I don't know, a kid from the middle of nowhere, Vermont, comes out here and helps out an auctioneering company. It's kind of neat, and they like to introduce me as the Vermonter, so it's pretty fun.
That sounds exciting. And who knew from a sale in 2013 of brown Swiss cattle that you would find yourself today, like you said, involved with an auction company and right where you go to school. And that's a pretty cool story. So not only is it a cool story, it brings us into our sale discussion as well. And as I indicated earlier, Springfield Showcase Sale is our sponsor for today's episode. And Keenan, you're kind of the big driving force behind that sale. So if you could tell us a little bit about the sale and what folks can expect and look forward to for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Springfield Showcase Sale will be taking place on April 20th, 2026, and it'll be closing at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Cow Buyer. Right now we have 29 lots with 3 semen lots. I believe we have an embryo lot of every breed of dairy cattle, and then we have a bunch of live lots too. So looking forward to putting on the Springfield Showcase. Last year, we had kind of the vision to put on the Springfield Showcase Sale, along with friends of ours, Duncan and Courtney Bailey, to kind of have that experience and really showcase what we have going on at Farmstead Genetics and kind of put us on the map. We have some really cool embryo lots. We have some Rages out of Carvella. We have some Rays out of Welcome, which is a brown Swiss. We have some Magellans out of Beach Party. And then we also have a winter calf out of Beach Party selling too. A couple of really interesting Guernsey lots. And then right now we have right around 10 Holstein lots too. So I wanted to kind of bring a little bit of the taste of the Midwest back to New England too, kind of like we did last year, just through some connections that I've made in the Midwest, fitting kind of all around, and then also going on judging practices and kind of meeting new people. So definitely really pleased with how the lineup came together and glad that I could put together a catalog with my dad this year to showcase at the Northeast All-Breed Spring Show.
So what you described for a variety of animals certainly fits well with the theme of the Northeast All-Breed Spring Show. We'll have all the breeds there and fantastic quality in all the shows. And I'm sure just as last year, you'll have some in the sale that can walk right into the show ring later on in the week and later on in the season and be very competitive. So that makes a great addition to our show week activities. I am a little bit disappointed that we're not going to get to hear you auctioneering along with this sale. That's my only comment I'll make on that. But I'm sure I'll have lots of opportunities to hear you call sales in the future.
We debated having me do the live auction too, but it just wasn't going to work out with our school schedule. I have to get back for doing some homework and some exams that following week. So that's why I'm not really staying the whole week out at Spring Show. So I'll be there Friday through Monday of the sale, and then we actually fly out midday on Monday. So I won't actually be there for the sale, but I'll be watching on a cow buyer.
I'm sure it'll be a super sale, and appreciate your description of it and appreciate the support for this episode. I know you said you had to do a little bit of actual homework for your homework question here on an iconic New England cow and had to reach out to some family resources on it. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess kind of the iconic cow that I've had in mind was Howacre's Jewel Alexis. Alexis was a very special cow to my grandfather. They actually sold her in the National Holstein Convention sale in 1973, and her sign from the show is still hanging in the milk house today. So everybody can see it when they walk in and they walk out. And I just think it's a really cool piece of history because I'm not sure if that's time's been touched since 1973 or 72, whenever. But I believe she sold for $44,000 in 1973 and was the second high seller or high seller in the National Holstein Convention sale. I was not able to confirm that, but that was pretty cool. My grandfather owned her. He actually bought her from the farm and she was just being milked there. And my great grandfather, Grandpa Charlie, he begged him not to sell the cow. She was definitely their best cow in the barn. And at that point in time, my grandfather and his few brothers were milking out of bucket milkers in their tie stall. They didn't have a pipeline yet. And so they actually sold the cow and she paid for the pipeline in the barn that's still in the barn today, which is, I thought, it's a pretty cool story. I mean, every time you walk in the barn, pipeline's always there and you don't really think about it, but it's just something that we take for granted, I guess, having the pipeline. And we still milk out of bucket milkers, our few show cows, but it's something that's kind of always been there and it's a little piece of history now. So I think that's pretty cool. The cow also had over 300,000 pounds of milk lifetime, which is insane for that area of time. So yeah, just did a little bit of digging on that, but it's really cool to see her sign whenever you walk in and out of the milk house and knowing that we got to keep the excellence up at the old Howacres farm and seeing that. And then my grandparents still have a picture of her framed when you walk into their garage. And so seeing that, it's pretty neat that they were able to do that way back in 1973. Great
story. And
yeah,
a really fantastic set of connections. Again, like we keep coming back to that every episode we do between the connections. I mean, think back in 1973, '73, the National Convention Sale. There's a Howe Acres animal that did fabulously well, and
And it was in Louisville, Kentucky, I believe.
And how many years later you were recognized as a distinguished junior member finalist at one of those same National Holstein conventions, and all the kind of the generations and connections in between are pretty amazing part of our business.
Yeah, whenever I go home, I have my grandfather tell me the story, because it just gives me goosebumps every time that, I don't know, he kind of told my great grandfather, told you so. Like, we probably should have sold the cow, and he did. And he's really thankful that he did sell the cow, and she went on to do great things. I believe she was Reserve All-American that year that she sold too. So
you had a relatively positive experience this last fall. I think you had a pretty good week at World Dairy Expo.
Yeah, absolutely. So this past fall, the University of Minnesota Dairy Cattle Judging Team was high team at the Intercollegiate Dairy Cattle Judging Contest at World Dairy Expo. And then my teammates and I were all top 6 individuals, which was really neat, especially for a 3-person team. My class here at the University of Minnesota for dairy judging consisted of me and my good friend Brady Geel. So we had a really small class of seniors, and then we pulled up one of the juniors, Alexis Hafes. And so we had a 3-person team to compete at the National Dairy Cattle Judging Contest, which was really cool to see.
That's excellent. And you were, in fact, high individual, were you not?
I was high individual and in reasons, but definitely placing saved me that day.
Well, congratulations again on that, and a tremendous accomplishment to have a team of 3. Most teams have 4, so they have a little bit of wiggle room, but you guys didn't let that slow you down at all.
Absolutely. No, it was definitely a lot of pressure. The University of Minnesota Dairy Cattle Judging Teams won World Dairy Expo Dairy Judging Contest for the past 3 years, and then this past year and the year before was actually both a team of 3. And so we were able to see the team from 2 years ago do it with 3, and that kind of gave us hope that we were going to be able to pull it off again with only 3. So we're glad that we were able to, and definitely thankful that the cards fell in our favor that day.
So just to remind folks, for our upcoming events, we have the Northeast All-Breed Spring Show the week of April 20th, and the Springfield Showcase Sale will be on April 20th itself. And find that on Facebook. You folks have an active set of posts there. The sale will be up on Cowbuyer as well, and you indicated that would be a 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time closing time for that. Make sure to check that out. Keenan, thank you for joining me today for this. It's always a fun conversation and some cool stories, and I appreciate that. For our listeners, make sure to find us at nesholsteins.com, Spotify, Apple Play, YouTube, really wherever you find your favorite podcasts, you'll find us. Thanks again for joining us for episode 14.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.